he took the bread, gave thanks, and broke it. And he gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, given for you." Do this in remembrance of me.
Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's edition of Conversations on Lent. This is a very purposeful midweek virtual series that we're doing between Ash Wednesday and Easter Sunday. I hope you were able to be with us last week for Ash Wednesday. It was a really, really precious time, whether you were here in the building or joined us virtually. I hope you got to be a part of the kickoff to this Lenten season and all that it's about, all that it means, and all that it means for us here at the Tehachapi Vineyard Church. If you weren't able to be with us, you can go back on our Facebook or YouTube pages or any of our platforms and be a part of that time together. But today, we're starting off our conversations on Lent with talking about this topic, the power of remembrance. Why is it that remembering is such an important part of our journey with Jesus? You may not be familiar with Lent and what Lent is all about. And I don't want you to be thrown by the religiosity of the word. Many people associate with Lent kind of if you will, a Roman Catholic holiday. Lent is something that the church across many denominations has utilized as a very purposeful season of focus together as various communities. And that's what we're doing with it here at the Tehachapi Vineyard Church, just like we did during the Christmas season when we were celebrating the Advent focus. What does it mean to celebrate Christmas? We're asking those same questions. What does it truly mean to celebrate Easter? What is it? What's it all about? Lent is a purposeful season of remembrance that points us toward who Jesus was, what he did, and why that's important for you and I to remember. Every single month here at Tehachapi Vineyard Church, we participate in something that is Lent-ish or Lenten, and that's what we historically call communion. So here in our context, we hand out a little cup. It's got a little cellophane thing on the top. We open it up. It's got a little wafer in there. We've got some juice on the inside. Communion is a purposeful communal remembrance that we do. Some communities do it every week. Some do it every month. Some do it quarterly. Some do it more often. But the reality is that comes right out of the Lenten season. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, he celebrated what we historically call the Last Supper. And during that meal, he said to his friends, I want you, like I'm doing now, to take bread and to break it and to share it. I want you to take a common cup and I want you to take it together. And here's the terminology used. He said, do this in what? Remembrance of me. Jesus, for some reason, found it really important for you and for me to take moments or to take seasons where we remember. Remembrance plays a key role in our journey with Jesus. I'm joined here today by my friends Nigel and Megan, who are pastors here on staff at TVC, and our good friend Denise, who is one of our key ministry leaders and is just an all-around lovely person. She's got great taste in music, too. She's a Nirvana fan, like me. We were just talking about that before recording. So it's good to know that you have good taste in music. Do you want to sing for us a little bit of like a Nirvana song? Do you want to kick us off?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
no? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So
So
I won't hurt the people's ears.
let me, well, very kind. Let me point this question to the collective we. Why do you guys think Jesus invites us purposefully to remember on the night that he was going to be arrested? Well, why was that his instruction? Why would he say to us, for us to remember down through history, down through the generations, I want you to do this thing together. I want you to come together. I want you to take a seasonal focus of breaking bread, sharing wine, and remember what I've done. Why is that important?
Well, he does say, do this in remembrance of me.
Yes.
So it's more than just, remember the meal. It's, I think the whole reason for why he came in the first place among us, and everything he is, was and did and does and all that stuff. I mean, it's just remember who I am.
Yes.
And I think the thing about remembering him is that you get everything else thrown in,
Yes.
Like if you remember the big picture, and by the time we get back down to our circumstances, you think, oh yeah, he's got this, from the beginning to the end,
Yes.
Alpha, Omega.
Yeah, right. So remembering seems to connect us to a larger continuum of time,
Absolutely.
right? Because if you're anything like me, Megan, right, the moment tends to dominate. Like whatever I'm experiencing right now, feeling right now, going through right now, seems to be the loudest. It seems to be the thing that's saying, Mike, look at me. Pay attention to this. Jesus seems to be strategic in his invitation to practice remembering, because it does, like Nigel's saying, seem to connect us to this broader scope of time, right? Why do you think he gave us that challenge? Why do you think that was important to him? What do you hear in that?
I think he knows us really well.
Yeah.
That we're forgetful, that we're like sheep.
Yes.
I think of Psalm 23, that's just coming to my mind, and how he is our shepherd, and how as sheep, they are very forgetful, and they're often called stupid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Kind of blatantly, right?
Yes. And just for Jesus to give that to us, to remember, and not just alone, but to do that purposefully together as friends. And I would say, as an extrovert, someone who does really learn from verbally processing and just sharing my heart with my friend and then hearing from them, wow, like there's a lot of power in that community. And so even that just makes sense with why he would invite us into remembering, because there's power in it.
Yes. Yeah.
Remembering who he is and who we are.
Yeah. And I like that analogy, because his terminology for us descriptively in John's gospel, right, is, hey, like he's like a shepherd and we're like sheep. And you're right. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but sheep are known as being, let's call them not rogue scholars, right?
That's nice.
So, yeah, exactly. And so there seems to be a genteelness, like a kindness in Jesus saying, I want you guys to come together in seasons or in moments, and I want you to remember, I know that this is going to generate something in you that you might not be able to generate by yourself and for yourself. There's such kindness in Jesus's instruction. It's almost, friends, like Jesus knows what he's doing, right? So let me ask this question about remembrance, because I am not a fan of nostalgia. I find it painful sometimes to remember. Like an anecdote in my family is if they put on old home movies, I leave the room. It makes me sad sometimes to remember. Sometimes remembering is hard. What's there is painful. Does that resonate with you, Denise?
It does.
Does remembering sometimes for you feel like a painful or difficult thing?
Oh yeah, I think some things we kind of hide away, like in a box.
Yep. Put out of our memory purposefully, right?
And I've for a long time lived to where when trying to remember the troubled times or whatever, I just run away from that and just leave it there.
Yeah.
But I don't know, now I feel like it's I wouldn't be who I am without it.
Yes.
And I haven't done it alone all this time. I mean, he's walks alongside us.
Yes. Yes. So on the night that Jesus is going to be betrayed and the next day die, he knew that what he was inviting them to remember in the moment felt not only painful, but bad, and like a road, like, Jesus, you can't want us to go down this road. This cannot be right. And he knew that part of what he was doing is inviting them to remember something that initially would be something they would want to put out of their thinking. I'm reminded of a book that I read called I think I've mentioned it before on a Sunday, called A Grace Disguised, by an author called Jerry Sitzer. And he went through something where he lost his daughter, mom, and wife all in one car accident. And he wrote in that book, I'll never forget this, that he found that the quickest way through the darkness was to go into the darkness. That meant reflecting on, grappling with, going back to things that when he remembered them were painful. Jesus on that night, when he's about to die, leave his friends, leave them in a state of confusion and frustration and anxiety and not knowing what's going on. He knew he was inviting them to something that initially felt painful, but in the end would be rich and redemptive and good. I don't know, for me, that feels really important. Jesus invites me to remember. I might not want to.
Right.
But in it is a beautiful instruction. There's something good in there that to me just feels scary and painful and bad at first. Does that resonate with any of you guys? Can you remember moments where Jesus has been saying to you, I don't want you to put that out of your mind. This painful thing, I want you to move toward. I want you to remember it.
Well, I feel that in different seasons, the struggle, like now, I mean, then it was painful. So I wanted to put it as far out of my mind as I possibly could. Yeah. But now I feel coming to this place that I needed to go through such a struggle to learn different things. There's always some kind of lesson in what you go through. Yes. Some kind of something that you can share with people that, that they might not have known or thought of it that way. And I didn't think of it that way. I was kind of, I wasn't so... You're kind of angry or confused or, in different seasons going through really tough trauma. Yeah. I feel like I wouldn't be in the place that I am today, trying to overcome certain things that I never thought I would be able to without going through those tough things.
Yeah.
So, I've been living to where I just hit it head on now, which before you just kind of run away or tuck it away.
Yes.
And I feel like it's so much better. I feel at peace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really well said. Nigel?
I was just thinking that, if in tough times or, tragic times, we could have heard God say to us, I'm going to use this for the greater good to reach other people.
That's right.
We'd think, I don't care.
Yeah.
I've been there.
It doesn't matter. Don't do it. Bad idea.
Just, no pain is my philosophy.
Yes.
But in his economy and, whatever analogy, the potter and the clay, whatever analogy you want to use, you find yourself, it it does something to you in retrospect, because then when you come across, or, you know, when you meet people who are going through the same thing, you don't just toss a Bible verse at them. You know, you have this empathy, which it's just been created in you. It's not something you, oh, now I'm empathetic. It's something that he's done in you, and it just comes out.
Yes.
You know, and it's I think it's precious.
Yeah.
His economy is definitely not our economy, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. So sometimes remembering is hard, is a challenge. Sometimes remembering is the opposite. Remembering is super joyful, nostalgic in a positive way, looking back on seasons to say, wow, this was so good and so rich, even sometimes with the temptation of wanting to go back there, right? Wanting to like forego what I'm currently in to go back to something that was richer, more beautiful, more experientially fun for me.
Yeah.
Is remembering for you, Megan, sometimes joyful? Sometimes like, oh, I love this. This is really, really, really good. Is remembering sometimes like that for you?
Yeah, definitely. So Kaylee's thing right now, our
And
daughter,
Kaylee is your
daughter
yeah.
is a year and a half.
You okay?
She's already like just obsessed with pictures.
Yes.
And so even just looking back to when she was born, at her picture book, you know, and she'll look at the pictures, and she doesn't remember it obviously, but I do.
Yes.
And it is so fun. It is just, it's so joyful, and I'm so thankful to be able to remember with her in that same moment. It's only like a year and a half ago, and it already feels so far.
Yes.
But for me, it raises up thankfulness and just gratitude, because in that season, you know, it's joy and overwhelmedness as a new mom too, you know? So like you look back and it's so sweet, but you also remember the reality of like, that was a tough season.
Yes.
And thank you, Lord, for walking with me through that and teaching me what I needed in those moments.
Yes.
And I'm really thankful to be where we are now. And yeah.
Yeah.
So joy is definitely a good word for that.
I find it fascinating that you know, with you and Kaylee, and you know, you're a year and a half in.
Yeah.
But even over that year and a half, right? A lot has developed, a lot has changed, a lot has grown. And you brought up looking at pictures. Yeah. And so pictures capture a moment in history, right? They do. They freeze frame a moment, a space that we inhabited. Nigel referenced earlier the idea of remembering playing the role of connecting yesterday to today, right? Showing us that we're on a continuum. It's not just this moment. And if you're anything like me, friends, anything like Nige, anything like Megan, anything like Denise, we have a tendency to get caught up in the moment. Remembering seems to be a practical tool to draw us out of the moment. And I think Jesus' wisdom is profound here to say to us, practice seasons and moments of remembrance. I think there's 3 specific things that the Lenten season, these 40 days running from Ash Wednesday right up to Easter, specifically calls the church to remember. Kind of 3 things that this remembrance does to us. And your thought on a continuum and your thought on pictures brings us to mind the first one. And that is, I think Lent powerfully reminds us that our faith is rooted in a historical reality, something that God did at a specific moment in history. We have a tendency to make our faith very ethereal. It's all about just belief, and everything's going to be happy, clappy, and shiny, and one day I'm going to go to heaven. But what Lent reminds us, Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, Palm Sunday, Easter Sunday, is that Jesus got dirt under his fingernails. Jesus ate fish and unleavened bread and drank wine with friends, with a community of people. Jesus, knowing he could defend himself to Caiaphas and to Pontius Pilate, lived in a historical moment where he embraced a cruciform shape for each of us, Why is it important for you and I to remember that our faith is not just rooted in the emotion of my experience with God existentially, but rooted in what Jesus did at a fixed moment in actual historical time? Why is that important?
Okay.
You
said I could
he
bring
put the glasses on. Now it's really going to happen.
Okay. This is a little different, but you might remember when Joshua took Israel across the Jordan.
Yes.
And he had 12 guys from the 12 tribes get 12 stones and set up the 12. And it talks here, on the 10th day of the first month, this is Joshua 4, the people went up from the Jordan and camped at Gilgal on the eastern border of Jericho. Joshua set up at Gilgal the 12 stones they had taken out of the Jordan. He said to the Israelites, in the future, when your descendants ask their fathers, what do these stones mean? Tell them, Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground, for the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan just what he had done to the Red Sea when he dried up before us until we had crossed over. He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God.
Yeah.
It's a great Welsh preacher, Martin Lloyd-Jones, talking about revival. Revivals in Wales happened on a regular basis up until 1859. And he likened the revivals, because they happened in such a regular basis, to these stones, that they remind us of God's power and God's nitty-gritty involvement in our lives.
Yes.
In it, but transcending everything.
Yes.
And complete control.
Yes.
All the time.
All the time.
So anyway, just threw some Joshua at you.
Yeah, I love it. And it is true. There is a routine in Scripture where God invites us to remember what he did at a fixed moment in time, so that we have more context for the moment, where the story's coming from, where the story is now, and where the story is going. The second thing that I think Lent does in remembrance is it reminds us that we do not belong in this narrative alone, that we're connected to this much broader story, a bunch more people. Denise, you seem to really love the community here at TVC. You're such an important part of it, and you bring so much joy and impact in the way you go about being you.
Yes.
Why is it important for you in your faith not to just sit home and kind of do your journey with Jesus alone individually? Why is community, being connected to this broader narrative, such an important part of your story and your journey with Jesus?
You know what? I would have never thought that I would be at this point, because I've always been someone that was so shy and kind of tended to be by myself. But inside, I wanted to be the person that was all about everybody else. And I think that I feel like, especially with the season that we're working through, being a home alone, just with Jesus and me, it's just not enough. I feel like I want to hear everybody's story. And I want to share my story with everybody. And I feel like community helps everybody. Even if no matter what you battle with, it's better to do it as a collective we than just as me at home. I feel like I need that. I feel like that's what I struggled with the most. Going through life, feeling that I, couldn't really get out there and talk to people. I was just always so in a shell, basically. And I felt through the years of different seasons and different traumas. I don't know. It's funny to be here, because this is, I would have never imagined. Only through Jesus would I be here, because I just feel like it's totally, and anybody that truly knows me over the years, they would be like, what is she doing?
What happened to this girl?
What is she doing?
I love it.
Because it's not me, but I love this me, and I love doing life together in this community. And the moment I stepped in these doors, I knew there was going to be a change.
Yes. And isn't it beautiful how kind Jesus is? Knowing that your natural impulse is introversion,
Yes.
stay home, stay within your own story, but he wooed you into the church,
Yes.
capital C, and said there's so much more robust life for you. You're going to find joy on the other side of these nerves when you knit your life together in community. And isn't that precious that that's part of the remembrance of Lent? Remember, it's not just your story. Remember that I've done something down through the ages. And just like John writes in Revelation chapter 1, Jesus refers to himself as the one who was, and the one who is, and the one who is to come. And we get to be connected to that. Final remembrance of Lent that I see there is it's a stark remembrance of how far God's love is willing to go. What does it mean to you, Megan, personally, that Jesus was willing to do what he did at a fixed point in history for you, for Kaylee, for Jeffrey, for me, for all of us? What does it do to you? And tell us tell me what the tears are about.
It's just so powerful, you know?
I'm not sure if that came through on the microphone. You said it's just so powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so powerful that it just, you know, I can't help but be caught up in the reality of that radical love.
Yes.
And I think that so many of us, like myself, don't know how to receive it all the time.
Yeah.
And so that call to remember it and that invitation to know that kindness and to know that it's for all and for me as well and for my Kaylee and for my friends. And, you know, just it changes everything when we realize that love is real and not just, like you said, out there, some ethereal kind of a thing.
That's right.
But it is radically real and changes our stories, changes where we thought we would be, and calls us into more and into who he's made us to be. And there's joy in that.
Yes.
And I think the tears are just for thankfulness, you know, for that. And a deep desire for more people to know that too, you know, and to share that and invite them into that. So.
Jesus says poignantly in the gospel narratives, no man takes my life from me, but I lay it down of my own choosing or my own accord. Is there a practical way from you guys as we close tonight that you would encourage our friends engaged with tonight's session, a practical way people can remember in this Lenten season the extent of God's affection for us? What's a practical takeaway you would say, hey, guys, over these next weeks, I would encourage you to practice this? What's a practical way to remember? I've got one that I practice routinely, even more so during Lent. I have a piece of art on the wall in my office with Jesus still on the cross. And I'll just take moments during my day where I look at that, I reflect on it, and I remember the cruciform shape of his love and that was for me. And so just a real practical, simple way is to immerse myself back in the story by reflecting on Jesus on the cross, reading the gospel narratives, watching the passion of the Christ, something that brings us back to the remembrance of the shape of how far that love was willing to go. Can you guys think of any others that are practical encouragements?
I have one that for busy moms. Someone had suggested to me to, like when I'm cutting up vegetables, because I'm always in the kitchen, right? I'm always prepping food. We're always doing that. To just take time to remember God's presence with you. And so, you know, being faithful to like try and practice that. It feels kind of funny at first, but man, God has met me in some really sweet ways in that.
God, you're chopping vegetables with me right now, right?
I love it. And just you're with me, and then, all of a sudden he speaks to me about how he's with me in whatever I'm facing that day. And also I can hear his voice clearer and just know his love and presence with me. And one thing too with that is that that's become like a thing that I'm practicing, right? So then one day I'm breaking up bread for Kaylee, and I don't even realize that like I'm breaking bread, and it's just like,
it comes home.
It got me of like just the communion of God with us in the simplest of things.
I love it.
And a busy mom who like is like, I don't know what I'm doing, like in a huge learning curve, but that God's presence is with us, and to just find spaces in your normal life where you can remember his presence with you.
I love it.
And he'll meet you in that.
I love it.
One of the things I'm practicing, and it comes out of something that we've learned from, or I've learned from you, is, this whole thing about God loving us, even in our worst moments.
That's right.
So, when I'm going through whatever I'm going through, abject selfishness or, whatever, I try and recall that I'm as loved in this state of mind where all my emotions are all over the place and I just want to sulk. He can't love me any more or any less than he loves me now.
Amen.
And try and receive that in those dark moments. So it's one of the things I'm working on.
I love it. I love it. Denise, final word. What's something that you would say, friends, I would encourage you to practice this during Lent, to remember the extent of the affection that Jesus has for you?
I feel that, like Megan said, life gets so busy and we tend to forget no matter what. But I feel like even in the car, we were talking about with music, just listening to your favorite Christian, like mine, I listen to a Christian station or a favorite, I would say CD, but my car doesn't have one now. Never mind.
Worship streaming service?
Yes, on Spotify or whatever, that you can still be in that moment, even if you're busy in traffic or picking up the kids like I still do, or, taxi around friends, or, it doesn't matter where, but I feel grace in that moment. And like Nigel was saying, no matter what you're going through or your darkest moment, how loved you are, even if you don't feel very lovable.
Yes.
So I find that happening to me because I spend a lot of time in my car, and even more so when the kids were small.
Yes.
And you just get so wrapped up in yourself, and that just brings, I don't know, you can contemplate so much and you can feel more at one with Jesus, just even in your daily routine, like chopping vegetables or in traffic or wherever you may be.
Yeah, so the power of remembrance can happen in our car.
Yes.
It can happen when I'm, breaking up bits of bread for my daughter in the kitchen. It can happen when I'm at a low moment and I'm remembering this is exactly why Jesus took cruciform shape for me. Friends, each week we are focusing on the power of remembrance and why that's so important in this Lenten season as we remember Jesus purposefully going to the cross, Jesus purposefully laying down his life for us, Jesus purposefully redeeming our lives and taking himself back up from the grave in ultimate victory and triumph for all of us. Join us as we continue over this Lenten season in discussing the power of remembrance in all of its facets. I hope you'll be with us next week as we continue conversations on Lent. Thank you, friends.
And he took the bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and he gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, given for you. Do this in remembrance of me."